raising our children to be who they are supposed to become, not who we want them to become. Hey everyone, I'm back and I'm really excited for today's conversation. On this podcast, I strive to have real conversations with real parents who are experiencing real world problems and pulling back the curtains, not only on motherhood and parenthood, but also every aspect of our lives so that we can strive to create more alignment with not only who we are, but change generational patterns and make a bigger impact in the community at large. And today I'm really excited to share Jaime's story with you. Jaime is an active member of the national LGBTQ organizations, many other organizations as well that empower and support parents of LGBTQ children. And she is raising a daughter, a trans daughter. And today we talked about activating for inclusion, diversity, and safe spaces for transgender children. And yet we are not even close. Not even close. A lot has happened culturally, but we are not even close. We can keep our children in bubbles, but I think where the magic truly needs to happen is when we step out into our brave zone and really advocate on bigger platforms. And in this conversation, Jaime gets really vulnerable, and we have intimate conversations around her struggles as a mother, raising a transgender child, how her daughter is living her life and feeling safe, and what her and her family have lost, advocating for her daughter and allowing her daughter to stand in who she wants to be in the world, not who the world wants her to be. So I'm really excited for you to listen to this conversation. And all I ask is that as you're listening, just listen with curiosity and an open heart and an open mind. I think when we're more curious instead of judgmental of others and ourselves, we can then, start to relay these messages into our everyday life, right? Seeing like, where am I judging? Where am I closing off? Where do I have these expectations, these unrealistic expectations of who everybody else needs to be in my life? I think you will be pleasantly surprised that maybe you yourself are not raising a transgender child, but maybe you know somebody who is, or maybe you don't, or maybe you had no idea, or maybe you're finding yourself angry, frustrated, and holding on to resentment to something that isn't yours to keep. So I'm really excited for you to listen to this conversation. Head on over to Instagram. I love to hear your thoughts. So tag me. You can take a screenshot, tag me, spreading the awareness and the words spreading awareness. That's where the magic happens. And you can also tag Jaime. Jaime's Instagram handle is at JAI Donna, DONNA 19. JAIDONNA 19. I think the more we listen and learn and share, this is the bigger impact we are going to make in the world. And I also wanted to remind you, we have kept the doors open. I received a lot of questions and messages from you, from people saying, I got the I got the mailing address of the person I wanted to send my gratitude gift to. So we actually opened the doors. We're going to keep them open for a little while. Our goal is to send 500 of these. So we are almost halfway there. So we're going to keep the doors open. And now you can also, if you don't know who to send it to, you can also send a message of hope or gratitude to a woman in treatment. So we are donating a portion of the proceeds to every gratitude gift. It's called the Pay It Forward Gratitude Giving Campaign. It's $15. That includes shipping. And if you head on over to heatherchauvin.com/pay it forward, or you can find the link at the top of my website, just heatherchauvin.com. We will, all the details are there. And essentially what you're doing is you're sending a gift of message of gratitude to a friend, but you can also send it to a woman at the shelter in which that we are donating to. And I think that is such a beautiful gift. And, you know, the world always needs more gratitude, but I think now more than ever, we really, really need it. And we can get into that energy of possibility instead of staying in, oh shit, what is happening? I am drowning. So, and for everybody who purchases one, you are also getting access to my book. I have the intro and chapter 1 that you get a sneak peek, instant download. We're going to be doing a meetup pretty soon. So get in there while you can. So heatherchauvin.com/payitforward. And I really, really appreciate each and every one of you who have taken steps to do so. It's because of you that we're making a bigger impact in the world. So let's dive in. Let's listen to Jaime, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Send me a DM on Instagram. All right. Miss Jaime, welcome.
Hi.
I'm excited to have you part of the Mom is in Control community, and thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you, especially since this week is Transgender Awareness Week.
I did not know that.
Yes, the whole week. And tomorrow is the culmination, which is the annual Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is when we remember all of those who've lost their life to violence and assault.
Is it a coincidence? Well, no. So this week, so we're recording this on a Thursday. So it's this week that has almost passed.
Yes.
The week.
So I think
Is it intentionally fall before the week before Thanksgiving?
I don't believe so. I think it's just annually this week.
Oh, interesting. We're going to have a really interesting conversation today, one that I think we all need to be having because you are living it. So maybe just talk a little bit about your story. I know it was Sarah from the Dear White Women podcast that introduced us and said, Heather, you need to meet Jaime and her story. And then I was reading your bio and you said something about writing a book one day. So I'll secretly kick your ass and make you do that because mine's coming out in March, and it's always that desire that's there, but there's a lot of resistance that comes up. And of course, life gets in the way. So I'm just grateful for your time today. And I'm just going to give the microphone over to you to kind of let everyone know kind of a little bit about your story, but also what you take a stand for.
Okay. So, my name is Jaime. My pronouns are she and her. I was born and raised in New York, but I've lived in Florida for 15 years now. Wow. With my husband. We have 3 kids, all amazing, 14, 12, and the youngest is 9. Currently a stay-at-home mom because of the pandemic, but by trade, I am a luxury retail manager, but I am actually about to embark on a new journey as a high school educator. Let's see,
Is that a virtual high school educator? Will you be in person?
I was supposed to start in person, but we didn't make it that far because I have all 3 kids at home with me, digital learning. Yeah. So trying to keep up with the 3 of them, and one being in high school, one in middle, and one in elementary. They all start at different times, end at different times. It's been a challenge. So I kind of had to put that on hold until we can, clear up what's going on. So I get to spend all this time with my kids, which is great, and also is driving me insane slowly. So, we're all we're all in that place, I think, with the pandemic. But my youngest child, Dempsey, she's 9. She's transgender, so she was assigned male at birth. She socially transitioned at age 5, and she's been living her authentic life since. And most of the time, I use my voice as a parent of a transgender child to advocate for the inclusion and acceptance of the trans community. But of course, my perspective is that of a cisgender person. I'm not trans myself, so there's some things that obviously I can only have as my perspective, not obviously as a trans person. So that's always a good thing for me to kind of put out there, because I can't say I speak for the entirety of the trans community, but as a parent, I can certainly give my perspective.
For someone, and I'll just keep asking you these questions because I'm sure it's like it's so easy for you. But if people do not understand what cisgender means, can you just briefly explain that?
Sure. Cisgender just means that you identify in the gender that you were assigned at birth. So when the doctor presented you to your parents, they said it's a girl, it's a boy based on body genitals, and you just identified with what you were born assigned as.
Awesome. And you were talking about your daughter the first time we had a conversation, and that you're kind of in a bubble, and she loves her life and she loves who she is, and her siblings, you know, kind of everyone protects her, but it's not always like that on the outside.
No, absolutely not. She does. She lives in a bubble, which essentially we've created for her. She's always been accepted in our family. It's never been an issue. So she doesn't really deal with a lot of the discrimination and intolerance. Generally, those remarks and comments and things tend to fall on us as parents, because we're very visible on social media and in our advocacy work, and lobbying in the state capitol, things like that. So we tend to get the brunt of the worst, which isn't fun, but it's worth it because she's protected. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things that she'll face as she gets older, but for right now, she's in a safe space and is loved and just living her life, doing her thing. She's a total diva. She runs the house. Has nothing to do with being transgender. She's just, that's her personality. She runs the show.
I love that. You're like, hey, so they just come out that way. Do you find her friends more accepting of that than older generations?
Yes and no. I think kids don't really care, right? I mean, like I don't think that they really understand. I mean, she has sometimes conversations with her friends, and they're like, well, she'll say, I used to be a boy, or I was born a boy, but I'm really a girl. And they're like, oh yeah, well, when we were little, we had short hair too. So see, they don't really understand necessarily, and they don't really care. They just like people for who they are, and that's it. We have a harder time with parents, because I feel like a lot of parents that aren't educated on the topic, or are just really unaware or ignorant about it, tend to think, oh well, if this kid hangs out with my kid, now I'm going to have a gay kid or a trans kid, and I don't want that around. It's a bad influence. It's the whole idea of let's not talk about it, pretend it doesn't exist, and then our children won't know, which is really silly, because I mean there's plenty of people in the world that are different from us, and by pretending that they don't exist, it's not really helping in any way.
Yeah. And when you hang out with cisgendered people, you don't automatically become that as well. Right?
Exactly.
Like, if I'm hanging out with a cisgendered male, I'm not, quote unquote, becoming a male, or vice versa. If I'm hanging, it's very interesting. So this all stems from fear, fear of the unknown, fear of, something different, and fear of, I don't want to say change, but just fear. And when people are in a state of fear, the fight or flight comes out, and they can be very mean and threatening. And I know you have some stories too. And part of the reason why I wanted you to come on here, I don't know why I'm just like getting emotional all of a sudden. I don't know why. Why does this happen to me? Because of my background in social work, like just seeing families fall apart. But I have a huge spot in my heart of like keeping children safe. And I think as parents, we are like the first line of defense. Of course, there's teachers and community members and things like that. But the fear of like not being able to keep your child safe when they're just walking down the street, or like, quote unquote, being children in the world, having your own things as parents, but just knowing that there's other people out there that are not necessarily, I don't want to say they're coming from a bad place, but they're just coming from like the primal brain of their fear sensors kicking on. And that's not cool. So I would love for you to share some of this with people, because part of the reason why I'm having this conversation is, even though someone listening to this might say, this doesn't pertain to me, or I don't know somebody who's trans, or, I live in my little privileged bubble and we're safe here and everything's fine. understanding that that's not the case for everybody. And we kind of just have to take our blinders off a little bit and just observe how there's microaggressions going on, but how other people may not feel the same way. So I would love for you to just pull back the layers of what it's actually like for you, trying to create that safe container of space, not only for your daughter, but the whole community in the work that you do as an advocate.
Sure. So, keeping her safe, that's really hard. It's hard because my husband and I have to constantly worry about things that I don't worry about with my two sons, like when she gets invited to a sleepover or a pool party, for example. Those are really hard conversations that we have to have with her, because it's not always going to be that simple. If I don't know the parent, I can't just let her go over there. It's a safety concern. You know, things like that. We have issues where I have to go into the school every time she starts a new grade, every time she starts a new school. I have to go in and educate the educators. Essentially, I have to, set boundaries, let them know what it is that she needs. Whether it's bathrooms, things like that. And then there's just a lot of it's hard. It's I spend a lot of my time worrying. She shouldn't have to worry about which bathroom to go to. She shouldn't have to worry about being bullied. And these are all things that we just have to prepare her for. I don't know. I mean, I don't know which specifics you're wanting. I mean, there's a lot of specifics when it comes to, being called out ourselves as parents. I mean, we've been accused of everything. I mean, we've had, child protective services called on us for abusing our child. We've been called pedophiles. Basically anything you can think of, we've been called. But for her, it's just kind of making it so that her life is protected from the outside world, which is really cruel. And as you said, a lot of people say they don't know a trans person. In reality, they probably do. They just don't know it, because most trans people, I won't say most because I won't generalize. Many trans people that I've met live their life who they are, and they don't disclose that, and shouldn't have to. I mean, I don't expect that my daughter should have to walk into her, third grade class and say, "Hi, I'm new here. I was a boy and now I'm a girl, and this is what genitals I have." I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, and anybody that's wondering what genitals any of my children has, there's something really wrong with them, not, vice versa. So yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. It's difficult.
So let's talk about that. We're going to wave a magic wand for a moment. Perfect wand. Okay. I know, JB, this might be difficult to envision. Everyone is open. They're like, tell us what to do. We will do it. So in a perfect world. So when we jumped onto this call, you had your pronouns in your name. Right. And I have my pronouns. I put them in my bio, I think on Instagram. Hopefully they're still there. If not, they'll be going back up. And I've done this in other areas. And then I was like, oh yeah, why do I not have them here? Right? This is not what I think about every single day. And I remember the first time I was at a conference and someone stood up and said their name and they're like, my pronouns are, I had no idea what they were talking about. No idea what they're talking about. And I know that this is still very new to people. And it's not just about that, but what can we do every day? Little shifts that we can make for more inclusion.
Well, the pronoun thing is really important, and it's something so simple. I mean, adding them to your email signature, anything. I mean, your bio, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is. It just normalizes the use of pronouns. And hey, it's not just for trans people. For example, my name, the way that it's spelled, and combining it with my last name, a lot of people assume that I'm Hispanic male because of my name and the way it's spelled. And so for me, it's like, hey, look, I'm me. I identify as a woman, and I'm Jamie. So that's so simple, and it's so important, and it actually makes it so much easier for trans people, I think, to just feel like they're introducing themselves is a normal thing. And so that's definitely a plus. As far as other things that people can do, it's really just not judging people. I mean, but that's like everything in life, right? All of us are, so busy judging what other people have, what other people don't have, who they are, what they don't do, whatnot.
What have you seen like the education system do, or like public places that are inclusive, like bathrooms or other things, or what does that look like?
So, well, inclusive bathrooms. I mean, first of all, I think any restaurant, any business, any facility that has a bathroom that does not have stalls, it should be a unisex bathroom anyway. I mean, let's be realistic. Why do we have to have single stall? You walk into a room, it's a toilet. Why does it have to say male or female on it? It should just be a unisex bathroom. As far as schools go, there's a lot of work. I mean, I don't know what it looks like everywhere. I can say in Florida, it's been a challenge. Because there isn't a statewide policy for schools. So, I mean, really, my kid goes to the bathroom to go to the bathroom. I mean, and in reality, my kid is more in danger using the bathroom than any cisgender child is. For people to be looking under the stalls and whatnot, and her own safety, getting bullied, getting picked on, getting beat up. Which obviously we haven't experienced yet. She's still little, but the stories that we hear from middle school and high school are very real. Mm-hmm. So it's really just being more open, a lot more training, a lot more inclusion and diversity training, which I think will go a long way in the school system. A lot of the bullying that happens, I mean, 75% of LGBTQ kids are bullied, and a lot of them are bullied by the administration themselves. So if we can't even act appropriately as adults, I mean, I don't know how we can expect our children to behave properly if we're not modeling better behavior for them.
I often think if we just we cannot remove the adults from society. But like when I started doing the work that I do, I always say I go through the parents to get to the children, because yes, we're overwhelmed. Yes, there's things, and we're trying to raise the next generation. But we do project a lot of they're watching us, right? And there's projections. But it's also a taught behavior. Like if it's normal to be trans, then that's not an issue. Or if you don't see bathrooms based on color. I'm sure there are a few somewhere, but you do not see that anymore. And the thought of that just boggles my mind. And I think one day that will be the same for male and female bathrooms, where we're like, why was that a thing? Right?
Yeah, I hope so.
It just goes back to able-bodied as well. Like that, I know I live in Canada, so I don't know if that's everywhere in the States, but they really, really push it here, that everything needs to be inclusive, and building codes for new bathrooms and stuff like that. Okay, let's talk about you talked a little bit about the stats of suicide and self-harm for trans people without family support. And talk a little bit about that, because it's one thing yourself to say, okay, like I'm here, I'll be an advocate. But what about these children, teens, adults that do not have the support around them? A little bit about that. Like, where do those stats come from? What types of support are they receiving?
Okay.
What do they need?
So, I wish I could say that we are the majority of parents being supportive. We're not. Most families are not supportive of their children. Youth homelessness in the US, 40% is LGBTQ kids that have been kicked out of their homes, rejected by their families. So, family support is super, super important. I mean, really, we're supposed to love our children unconditionally. I mean, and to be your kid's first bully, I mean, to me, that's incredible. I mean, I can't even imagine. But that is the reality of so many of these kids.
That statement, to be your kid's first bully.
Yeah. I mean, really, you are everything. It's your child. And if you reject your child, can you imagine how they feel as a human being, that their own parents can't support them in who they are. So, I mean, the statistics are horrifying. It's, 58% of kids in unsupportive homes, trans kids, will attempt suicide versus 4% in homes that do have, supportive parents. And besides the suicide, I mean, the rates of like generalized anxiety, depression, self-harm, cutting is a huge problem with the trans community because they're, so ashamed and so unsupported. So yeah, those statistics are horrifying. I mean, just even thinking of that, I can't imagine how anybody wouldn't support their child. I mean, looking at those numbers, but sadly, like I said, we are not in the majority. My husband and I, we get a lot of backlash because we are supportive, and a lot of it comes from, well, she's so young, and how does she know? And it's, a lot of it comes from there. But I mean, I just can't imagine, rejecting my own kid. I mean, if your own parents aren't going to love you, who is going to love you? I mean, that's how I, in my brain, try to wrap around like how some of these kids feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, yes. Yep. I'm like the whole culture of parenting, like, oh, are you having a boy or a girl? Pink or
parties
or blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gender reveal. Gender reveal.
I know.
And then the disappointment of, oh, well, that's not it. Or, oh, I bought all this clothes. Oh, it came out the opposite, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, since when do we have these social constructs of, oh, gender neutral? And it's like, is pink, girl? Like, who says? Like, so
somebody decided it. I don't know. Society has been pushing it on us for years. So, it's terrible because everything is dictated by what society tells us. And I mean, the gender reveal parties just blow my mind. I mean, here we're having this big party celebrating what genitals our children have. I mean, really? Like, that's what it's about. I mean, let's be honest. The child is not speaking. The child is not talking. They can't tell you who they are, but let's just look at their genitals and say, hooray, like that's really what it is.
Yeah. And then also when we, there is a big surrender here because previous to having children, people will say like, I want, this many children and the gender is going to be this. And it's like this perfectionism of like having this illusion in your mind of what things are going to be like and how it's going to look. And then you walk into the stores. Like I just had this conversation so I have 3 boys, cisgendered boys, and the oldest is almost 16. And like, it just, you're just like, I can't believe when you're a toddler, like I felt so in control. I could like put this cute little outfit on you. And now to get you to like clean your clothes is very difficult. And I laugh because I'm like, the illusion of control, the illusion of, you just see it on Instagram of like the perfectionism and like the like mom and baby outfits and things like that. And I think we're getting really fucked up in our head around like what this really is and just dissecting it. Like these, if you want to get really mystical, like these children are not yours. They come through you or they come to you and you are a spiritual guide or you are a guide, keeping them safe, keeping them fed. And that's it. I'm like, at the end of the day, if my children feel loved, like, and their bellies are full, I don't, if they didn't go to Disney World, like I have not failed. And if they don't get an A+, that's okay. So there's a lot that we have to unlearn. What Absolutely. Can you take me back to the moments when you realized you had a little girl?
Sure. So, God, Dempsey. So I thought I was having 3 sons. I was going to, be that mom with, the vanity plate that said my 3 sons on it. I thought it was a novelty. Dempsey she's always just been her. So it's kind of hard when she was 18 months old, 2 years, when she starts, when they're that young and they start gravitating towards toys and shows and things like that. We didn't have any girl things in our house because, well, quote unquote girl things. I mean, our boys the older ones were into trucks and Thomas the Train and all these, Elmo and things like that. And Dempsey only wanted, princesses and, Frozen things and My Little Pony. And, it was just, I don't know, only exposure she had was TV or, at the daycare, the preschool, She, in the beginning, she would put pajama pants on her head upside down. She would put the waist on her head and have these two legs coming down, like these like long braids, and she would always draw herself as a girl. Like that was a huge thing. And at first we were like, oh, she just is, who she is. She's just, going through a phase. A lot of parents, whatever. There's so many kids that play with whatever toys they want. It's not a big deal. And we were totally fine with it. And then we started to realize, well, this isn't a phase anymore, because she's not changing to, now all of a sudden I like, footballs. She was just like, one girl thing after the other. And it was persistent and consistent. And when we wouldn't let her wear what she wanted to wear to preschool, she would have ultimate meltdowns, really bad, crying fits, but like, awful. We would take her to to get her hair cut, and we would have to physically restrain her, to hold her down, to cut her hair. And it was agony, because it was like, here's this child who's just, so beautiful and so happy and bubbly and such a personality. And she was just like drowning. She was just retreating into herself, wouldn't talk, completely shut down. So we were like, we need help. We need help. I started doing some research. I'm a big reader. So I'm like, look, let me figure out what I can. Found amazing support groups, a therapist. And then, at about 5 years old, she came to us and said, Mommy, Daddy, I'm a girl, in my heart, in my brain. I'm not a boy. I don't know why, you thought I was a boy. I was never a boy. And this is who I am. So, we kind of went from there. It was, it wasn't such a big shock, where you see a lot of families that, I talk to, it kind of like the kids sometimes are older, and it kind of comes to the parents is like this huge shock. They're like, I had no indication. For us, it wasn't. I mean, it was just kind of her whole life. And it was just a progression that just got, to where we are now. And, because we've been so open about it, in the beginning, a lot of people were like, I'm kind of confused, but because we've been so open, they've watched MC grow. And I mean, now we're 4 years post social transition. So, I mean, people have taken that journey with us. So, I mean, yeah, she's always been a girl. We just didn't know it. We didn't know it because, when that little, they can't vocalize yet, we didn't know a word for it. She didn't know a word for it. And, I'll even put out there that, we thought too, how can she really know at, 3 and 4 years old, who she is? I mean, we're asking a lot of a little kid. And then I started reading, and there's so many studies that are out there, pediatricians that are saying children's gender identity is developed as early as 2 and 3 years old. I mean, if you ask any cisgender person, when did you know you were a girl? I'd answer, I always knew I was a girl. I always knew who I was. It wasn't, why are we asking these trans kids, why is this a phase? This is a trend. I mean, nobody would put themselves through the issues and the challenges that they face to be in a trend. I mean, that's ridiculous. But yeah.
I remember, I don't know where I heard it, and it was a long time ago, and it might have been a pediatrician who obviously is involved in research. It was around 18 months. They said that a child can identify, which you kind of just alluded to, because maybe not verbally, but it's like the choices, how they're showing up. And I'm sure, it doesn't have to go without saying around the healthcare professionals that need education around this as well.
Yes.
When I was listening to you, I talk a lot about, children's behavior as a language. And so, let's take the haircut, for example, and we can be controlling. Let's just be honest. Yes. I'm like, kids, you're getting a haircut. And I'm like, and then, I'm like, you look shaggy, like it's growing out. You need this, but understanding. And then my little one, his hair was probably the length of mine right now. When he was around 4, and then we got it cut, and I was like, lay off, people, like, let it go. It's fucking hair, for crying out loud. So and then I'm just the type where I'm like, oh, it bugs everyone. Okay, let's keep it longer. Let's just,
I love that.
Yeah, let's put it in pigtails. Like, what do you want? Like, it's fucking hair. Let it go.
Yeah.
So, but it's just funny how it triggers people because of what social constructs are. And I just laugh. Like, I'm the worst. I am the absolute worst. I'm like, oh, okay. And anyways, don't get me started. I'm just like, oh, you think it should be like this? I'll do the complete opposite. And then my son had no idea. He was like, I love my hair. He looked, it was beautiful. I even saved it. And so now I'm going off topic. What was I going to say? Oh, when she's like screaming, like, I don't want my hair cut. I don't want my hair cut. And how, parents see that at like, is it a behavioral issue? Is it a sensory processing thing? Is it something else? And then, you're always this detective trying to figure it out. And sometimes we don't know, because I'm sure you went to therapists and that was probably never a conversation that came up.
Yeah. It wasn't, and you're absolutely right. And for me, looking back, like, those are probably my darkest moments personally, because I still have so much guilt. I carry that around because I'm like, why couldn't I just let her grow her hair? Why did I make her wear that polo? Why couldn't she wear that dress because that was the thing. I mean, she wore all that stuff at home. She was exactly who she was at home. And, we prevented her from going out in the world, not because we were trying to be cruel, but because we were trying to protect her, because we didn't want her to get bullied at, preschool. And by the teachers, because we had to have conversations with the teachers too, who were telling her, no, you can't play with that toy. And that, so, a lot of it is going back saying, I really messed up. Like, I should have just let her be her, even back then, but I didn't know. And so it's a learning process, and I can't go back and, shoulda, woulda, coulda. But, now she's like the most, vibrant, outspoken diva that ever lived, sparkles and glitter. But she's happy. And so she doesn't have to hide who she is. She doesn't have to worry about when she steps outside the house to be a different person than what she is inside the house. I mean, I can't even imagine going through that as a 42-year-old woman. Can you imagine as a 5-year-old? I mean, I can't even imagine navigating that. So yeah, it's the haircut thing was, I can still, it's like, it's on like loop in my brain. Yeah. It's like one of those things, when you like, they cut to the movies and you have like these images that flash and it's like, there's flashbacks. That's one of them. And it's overwhelming because it makes me so emotional, because I'm like, God, why did I do that? Why did I sit there and physically have to hold her in a chair? I mean, to get her haircut, it's so stupid. And it's awful.
I have a story, and I don't even think I told it in my book, and I probably can't even tell the whole thing here because I'll just break down. But I think we all have, as moms, as parents, as caregivers, we all have those shameful moments. And I remember early in my days, I being a social worker, working in mental health, coming home and losing my mind on my son because of stress and not understanding his behavior, and just like dark moments when, I'm working to protect families, and then I'm secretly a hypocrite. And then going to work and looking at these people that are being judged for their parenting, knowing that like trauma probably takes a huge factor in like what is going on, and not truly protecting the children, just, putting them in a bubble of a fucked up system. So yeah, I think it's like, we're sitting there, and I'm just like, we do better when we know better. And I love that your daughter was, the courage and bravery, which, I'm sure if you had this conversation, I don't know her, but if you had this conversation, she would be like, this is me. But like, just to take a stand for herself over and over and over again. And Jamie, you listened, and it's a constant unlearning, I'm sure, but you definitely were not your child's first bully.
No, definitely not. I did have some, moments where I wasn't really understanding, but we caught on pretty quick. And, she's got it made. I mean, she's got a family, an immediate family who just adore her, support her in everything, super proud of her. I mean, I have to stop my 12-year-old son, who is this like, he's like her biggest cheerleader, and he like wants to run and like shout it from the rooftops. And I'm like, dude, you gotta like take it down, it's her story to tell. And he's like, but I'm just so proud of her, like, it's like, he's just like so proud of her. And then my older son, who's like, more quiet, hide in his room, play video games. He's 14. He's the one that's like having conversations with the new kid, like, it's okay, come sit with us, like, so they're all good in their ways, and they've all really rallied behind Dempsey to support her. Our extended family, our parents, everybody has been really, really great. And yeah, it makes it easier. For her, it makes it easier for us too, because a lot of people lose their families. We've lost a lot of friends. A lot of people lose their marriage over this. There's a lot of parents who just cannot get on the same page. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, it's not easy. But it's not something you pick. It's, you get what you get and you make the best of your life. I mean, that's really it in most instances, right? I mean, we don't know what we're going to get. So
I always say parenting is personal growth on steroids.
mm-hmm.
And, we are just spiritual teachers. And the more you try to plan, they say God laughs. You're just like, okay, like just show up and pivot, and, just be open. I really appreciate you telling your story today. And I know I'll definitely be tagging you on Instagram, and I know you have some really good resources for people and parents. And we never know the impact of who's listening or the seeds that we're planting. But if somebody is just like, where do I go? I know I see at least 3 resources here with the websites, and just talk a little bit about those organizations.
Sure. So PFLAG is a national organization. They are amazing. They have support groups pretty much everywhere. They were founded a long time. It's one of the oldest LGBTQ organizations for families, I think, in existence. They're great. Then we also have the Mama Dragons, which is mostly online, and it's basically everywhere as well, where you can be, you can chat and, find a friend, have an ear to, listen. And they're all moms of LGBTQ kids. It's not easy. You're not alone. There is people out there. I know for us, like, it was the best feeling when we found someone else who had a kid like ours, and it was like, wow, like, I'm not alone. Like, that's the hardest part, is being so isolated as a parent, because it's almost as society wants you to be ashamed and to hide it. And, these kids can't, they can't survive that way. And not everybody can be visible. And that's great too. There's not one way to be transgender or to be a parent of a trans kid. We advocate because we can. We have the privilege to, but not everybody can. Some people live in places that it's just not a possibility. And some kids just don't want to be. Our kid, she wants to be out there, and she wants to help others. She wants to be visible, because she knows that, look, if I'm visible, then maybe, another kid can say, look, she's who she is, and she's proud of herself. So that's why we do what we do. But like I said, it's not everybody, can do what we do or should do what we do, because it's not everybody's path. But there's definitely people out there that can help you. You're not alone. It's hard, but it's definitely rewarding. And, just love your kid. Like that. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. Love your kid. Listen to them, hear them, let them be who they are, because they're trying to find ways to tell you. And maybe you just haven't picked up on it yet. I was actually chatting with somebody reached out to me last night on Instagram from another country, and, was like, look, can you help my mom? My mom's really strict. She's really religious. And I need to tell her, what can you give me, can you give me ways that I can tell her? So, and I get those messages, every week. I get them all the time. And so there's a lot of kids out there that really want to, they need your support. They need your love, and, don't be your kid's first bully. Listen to them. They need your love. They need your support.
The magic of just holding space for somebody, like non-judgmental space, and listening and asking questions. Oftentimes I think we're like, but how? And just, it, like, to me, it's such a magical thing when people are like, I feel safe around you. That is like the biggest honor to me. I feel safe. And you could still, have boundaries and
of course,
do all of that. But when someone's like, I don't feel judged around you, and I feel like you really hear me, you don't need to know the next step for your child. I mean, yeah, look at resources, but you don't need to know the next step. It's just like, I got you. We're good.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's still going to be kids and they're still going to drive you crazy.
Of course.
And, you're going to have to discipline and, be like, nope, you can't do that. And there's going to be a fine balance there. So I see Mama Dragons.
Mama Dragons. Yep.
Yeah. So mamadragons.org, pflag.org, and then Mama Bears.
Oh yes. There's another one, Mama Bears. It's also everywhere too. All moms of LGBTQ kids.
Okay. So realmamabears.org.
Yep.
And I'm assuming if there's fathers that are listening, those are a great place to start for them as well, or other caregivers.
Exactly.
Awesome. Jaime, I so appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me. I love talking to new people and chatting, and I'm looking forward to a more inclusive world for all of our kids and all of us to enjoy.
Yeah, one step at a time. I'm hoping in 20, 30 years, well, it would be nice if it was like next year. But this is like an old conversation, and like, why would someone have to talk about that? Why, why isn't that? Can you just tell everyone what your Instagram handle is?
Sure. It's JAIDONN19, JDonna19.
Perfect. Thank you, Jaime.
Thank you.